President Trump criticized Walmart over the weekend due to price hikes. Trump said Walmart should absorb added costs rather than passing them on to American consumers. This after the retailer said it would raise prices in response to U.S. tariff policy. Trump says Walmart made billions of dollars last year, calling that far more than expected. He said Walmart in China should absorb the tariffs and not charge customers anything. The president said he would be watching the United States to reduce tariffs on Chinese goods from 145% to 30% for a 90-day period ending under a recent agreement. Walmart's chief financial officer, John David Rainey, said the lower rate is still too steep. Walmart says the company is taking steps to limit the impact on consumers. The plan is to work with suppliers to shift sourcing, substitute materials, and adjust product mixes. Filling the shoes of an outgoing CEO, former Nike executive Daniel Heath will be taking the place of Bath & Body Works executive Gina Boswell. The retailer announced that Boswell is stepping down immediately but did not give a reason for her departure. At the same time, the personal care and home fragrance retailer shared preliminary results for the first quarter. Net sales are up 3% year over year. The company also reaffirmed its outlook for the full year, expecting a 1 to 3% increase in revenue. What's in Capital One's wallet? $425 million fewer dollars. That's what. That's the amount the bank holding company has agreed to pay in a multi-state settlement with depositors. They said they were falsely promised increased interest rates on 360 savings accounts. The suit claimed that accounts had a fixed rate while a different higher yield account with better rates was not adequately advertised. $300 million of the settlement will go to the depositors to make up the difference in interest. The rest of the money will go to depositors with currently open 360 savings accounts. The preliminary settlement needs a judge's approval before it becomes official. Capital One admits no wrongdoing. Capital One and Discover are now one. Capital One has finalized a $35 billion acquisition deal of Discover. Together, they are the largest credit card issuer in the U.S. in terms of loan volume. Capital One founder and CEO Richard Fairbank said now, together, they can deliver breakthrough products and experiences to consumers, businesses, and merchants. Ahead of the acquisition being finalized, two Democratic lawmakers called on the Federal Reserve to pull the approval. They argue the deal would harm consumers and small businesses, but when the deal was first announced in February last year, Fairbank said the acquisition would allow them to better compete with the largest network and payment companies. And if you plan to visit Spain and stay in an Airbnb, you may have to rethink your accommodation. Spain has ordered the short-term rental platform to block more than 65,000 listings.
Options for places to stay in Spain just shrink. That's because the Consumer Rights Ministry has ordered Airbnb to block more than 65,000 holiday listings. The ministry said many of the listings did not have their license number or specify whether the owner was an individual or a company. The move is part of a broader housing crisis. The Spanish government is cracking down on tourism rentals like Airbnb and Booking.com. Locals say the sites are creating excessive tourism, reducing housing supply, and making rent unaffordable. Consumer Minister Pablo Bustindui said the order calls for the immediate removal of about 6,000 listings from the site. Subsequent orders would be issued until the nearly 66,000 removals were reached. Bustindui said he wants to end the illegal holiday rental business. An Airbnb spokesperson said the company will appeal the decision. It argues the ministry does not have the authority to make such a ruling and failed to provide evidence for non-compliant listings.
Next, an early arrival for the end of a lawsuit against Southwest. The Justice Department has dropped its case against the airline. That suit accused it of illegally operating chronically delayed flights. The Transportation Department filed the suit in January during the final days of the Biden administration. It pointed to two routes it said were chronically delayed for months in 2022. One was between Chicago and Oakland. The other was between Baltimore and Cleveland. Southwest praised the decision to drop the case. The airline noted the issues happened during unprecedented challenges from the pandemic and said the delays were outside the company's control in many cases. Drug maker Regeneron Pharmaceuticals says today it will buy DNA testing firm 23andMe for $256 million. After bankruptcy proceedings in March, lawmakers expressed concerns over the privacy of the genetic data from millions of 23andMe customers. NTD Sean Marshall has more.
Regeneron Pharmaceuticals said on Monday it will buy genetic testing firm 23andMe for $256 million through a bankruptcy auction. They promised to prioritize the ethical use of customers' DNA data. Through the deal, Regeneron said it aims to bolster its capabilities in genomics-driven drug discovery by integrating 23andMe's huge library of over 15 million customer DNA profiles collected via its popular direct-to-consumer saliva testing kits. The transaction will, however, put the spotlight back on data privacy issues, especially in light of 23andMe's recent challenges. Regeneron's press release mentioned that the company will prioritize the privacy, security, and ethical use of 23andMe's customer data. The drug maker also committed to working transparently with a court-appointed independent overseer who will assess the implications of the deal for consumer privacy and is expected to deliver a report to the court by June 10th. The court is scheduled to consider approval of the transaction on June 17th. 23andMe will operate as a wholly owned unit of Regeneron after the transaction, which is expected to be complete in the third quarter. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
U.S. home builders pulled back on projects in April. According to new data, single-family home starts dropped 12% in April compared to 1 year ago. Housing starts measure the number of new residential construction projects that have started. They are often seen as a key indicator of the overall health of the U.S. economy. Single-family permits issued for new construction also fell just over 5% from March. That's down 6.2% compared to April of last year. The drop in new home construction comes at a time when home affordability is near generational lows. Mortgage rates have been persistently elevated, and there are a shortage of home sales. A Lufthansa flight reportedly went without a pilot for 10 minutes last year after the co-pilot fainted alone in the cockpit. This is according to Spain's Accident Investigation Authority. The autopilot function was on, but the report says the co-pilot operated the controls unintentionally. The captain had left to use the restroom, but was unable to re-enter the cockpit until he used an emergency code. The co-pilot was given first aid by the crew and a passenger who was a doctor. The captain diverted the flight, and the co-pilot was hospitalized. An investigation found he had a neurological condition he was unaware of. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said yesterday that he is not worried about the Moody's recent downgrade of the United States AAA credit rating to AA1.
By the time they get to a downgrade, everything's already in the market. Larry Summers and I don't agree on everything, but in 2011, the last time, or 2 times ago when he had a downgrade, he poo-pooed it. What I think is important is that President Trump has just come back from this historic Mideast trip, and there's trillions of dollars coming into the U.S., so we are seeing confidence from investors. So I don't put much credence in the Moody's.
Moody's Ratings downgraded the United States long-term credit on Tuesday. It cited sustained rising debt, growing interest payments, and a lack of potential action to rein in chronic budget deficits. The move stripped the nation of its last perfect credit rating among the 3 major agencies. Bessent said President Trump's bill, which would extend the 2017 tax cuts, would surge economic growth. Bessent said that growing the economy faster is more important than the potential growth of the debt. NVIDIA CEO announced that he will establish his company's Overseas Research and Development Center in the capital of Taiwan.
As you know, we have been growing, and all of our partnerships with you have been growing. The number of engineers we have here in Taiwan have been growing. And so we are growing beyond the limits of our current office. And so I'm going to build them a brand new NVIDIA Taiwan office, and it's called NVIDIA Constellation.
NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang, who is from Taiwan, made the announcement at his keynote speech at an annual computer exhibition held in northern Taiwan. The start of the center's construction has not yet been announced, but it will be located in a technology park area of Taipei. Huang also announced that NVIDIA will partner with Taiwan's government and other local companies to build a giant AI supercomputer in Taiwan. And a new suggested show for you on Netflix. Elmo, Cookie Monster, and Abby Cadabby have found a new home on the streaming giant. Netflix announced that Sesame Street will start streaming later this year. It said the all-new 56th season will be available to audiences worldwide, as well as 90 hours of previous episodes. The move comes after Warner Bros. Discovery decided not to renew its contract to stream the series on Max. The series will still be available on PBS, however. An allergic reaction to onions is at the center of a lawsuit against Whataburger. Demery Ardell Wilson says he ordered his burger with no onions last month, but he says when he took his first bite, he tasted onions and it was enough to cause an allergic reaction. Wilson says he suffered serious personal injuries and required professional medical care. He is seeking damages more than $250,000, but less than $1 million. In a separate court document, Whataburger is calling for strict proof of the claims. Wilson filed a similar case against Sonic last year. Many new college graduates looking for work right now are having a difficult time securing a job, but there are things candidates can do to stand out. A career expert discusses tips on how to get hired.
Graduation is an exciting time for students as many close the chapter on their education and get ready to find their first job out of college.
It's really important for them to treat looking for their next opportunity like a full-time job.
Brandy Britton is a career expert at the recruiting firm Robert Half. She says this can be a challenging time for graduates trying to find a job, and the numbers show that. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York recently released their unemployment data and found nearly 6% of recent college graduates were unemployed. That's about 2 percentage points higher than the national unemployment rate.
Individuals who are willing to go on site for positions, are flexible with what their starting salary is, are being considered for some of the most opportunities.
Robert Half recently conducted a survey about hiring and found 71% of Gen Z respondents said getting noticed and securing an interview is their biggest challenge.
Let everyone know that you are looking for work.
Britton also recommends working with a mentor. Utilize your school's career services, connect with alumni in the field you want to enter, and highlight your experiences in college to show relevant skills. Before an interview, she recommends you should always research the company and ask questions.
Consider contract work. That's a great way for new grads to get additional skills.
Career experts estimate it can take college graduates 3 to 6 months to get hired, so be patient.
Now for your market recap. Stock movement pretty flat today, but all three major indexes ended in the green. The Dow Jones had the best day, up around 1/3%. The S&P 500 is now up 6 days in a row.